With Raffi and Dan. Here's Dan Rosenberg and Raffi Manassian.
Much better when we don't have to sing it ourselves.
Yes, I have to agree with that.
So we're back, not in the same room or the same car like we were last week. That was a fun show last week.
That was fun. Very enjoyable.
Yeah, it was fun to do it in the car. Our little Cars and Coffee group has been talking about taking a trip to the LeMay Auto Museum, America's Auto Museum.
It's America's Automobile Museum,
as it's called here in the Seattle area. It's in Tacoma, Washington. And if we do that drive, we'll do that on a Saturday. And we'll do the show live driving to Tacoma.
There you go.
So that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A couple questions came up during the week from different people that had car accidents and had damage to their vehicle.
Yeah.
And wanted to know, well, now that my car's got, a ding on the Carfax for being in an accident, do I get compensated for that? I know they're going to pay, the insurance company will pay to fix my car, but now my car is worth less.
It is worth less. And this is a really, really good point, Dan. What happens when you get in a car accident is, of course, your insurance company steps in. The other party's insurance company might step in. The resolution is that the vehicle gets evaluated at the shop. Damage is reported. Let's say it's $5,000 worth of damage. And then the car gets repaired, assuming $5,000 is not more than the value of the vehicle, in which case it would be totaled. So the insurance company then gives you a check. You have no medical issues and everybody is fine with just a mechanical repair on the vehicle. Now, your $25,000 car with $5,000 worth of repair goes off and you drive it and enjoy it. And let's say 6 months later, you come into some cash and decide to get a new car and you go to sell your car. Now, if you sell your car, someone's going to come in with a Carfax and they're going to say, oh, this car is actually not worth $25,000. It's only worth $20,000 because it says right here you were involved in a bad accident. And the same thing is going to happen if you go to trade it in at a dealer. They'll say, well, it's got accident damage report on the Carfax. That damage stays with the vehicle. So one of the things that's super important to do is to fight for your lost value in the vehicle, because your personal property has now been devalued by another entity out of your control. So to protect yourself, you need to absolutely talk to the insurance company at that time about the diminished value, and you need to specifically request a diminished value report.
Yeah, and what's funny is a lot of people don't even know this is an option, and your insurance company will never tell you about this.
This is the interesting thing, Dan. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
They are trained, the insurance adjusters, the people on the phone, the people that you just generally talk to, they're trained specifically, do not mention it. The only way to get it is to specifically ask for it. And they are then required, once you inquire about it, they're required by law to supply the form for a separate claim. It is a separate claim. It doesn't go on the on the existing claim. It's a separate claim that's filed. And you can, depending on the value of the vehicle, you can get anywhere between $500 and $1,000 for an average vehicle that's been damaged. Now, if you have a much more valuable vehicle that's been damaged, your claims for diminished value compensation can be substantially higher.
Yeah, and there are companies even that their job is to go out, evaluate your car, and provide a report that you can then submit to your insurance company. And, the insurance company is going to be like, oh, I don't want to see it. Or as soon as you start saying the word diminished, they're going to hang up on you.
Yeah.
What about click? Oh,
click. I'm sorry, we lost connection.
Yeah, and I just pulled up a Carfax. Let me see if I can bring this up. Because Carfax has become the credit report for cars.
Mm-hmm.
AutoCheck is also out there. Ironically, AutoCheck is owned by Experian, which literally is a credit report.
Yep.
And a lot of the auctions use auto check. But most dealerships and most consumers, Carfax is the standard term. It's the Kool-Aid, it's the Kleenex, it's the Coca-Cola. And they used to just say damage or accident, or that was it. Now they say things like how severe the damage was.
Mm-hmm.
And like, here's the 2009 Corolla.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows right on it that it was minor to moderate on the damage severity scale.
Yep.
And this particular one had been totaled. It was totaled out. But there's the accident, if you look, isn't even on here.
Yeah.
So had this customer not gone to insurance and just fixed this car, no one would have ever known it was even in an accident. And this was listed as damage. Obviously, it was more than damage because it was totaled out.
Well, and whether you go to your insurance or not, sometimes if you just say, look, I'll just pay for this myself, it was only a $900 bumper slam, and you take it to the shop, they get the replacement bumper, they put it on, they will enter your vehicle identification number into their system, and then it gets recorded. The damage report gets recorded. So if for some reason you do not want that damage report recorded on the vehicle, you can specifically tell the shop, do not put my VIN number in there. Now, sometimes you'll take a car to a shop, a body shop, and they will, and this is the reason why Carfax has had to change their indication now, where they add the severity of damage. Let's say your car was outdoors, and you parked it under a tree, and there was quite a bit of sap that fell on the car, and it was, and then you had a little storm, water, and a sunny day, and now you've got dried, thick sap droplets all over your nice car. So you take it to an auto shop, and they say, look, we've got special chemicals to do this. We'll give it a complete exterior body detail of this or that, but it's going to cost you about $500. You've got a beautiful $50,000 Mercedes. You say, great, get it done. So it goes in there, they log in the VIN, and it goes on that the car has been at a body shop for exterior body repair, which is what that is.
Right.
And then it's on your Carfax as potentially something that could affect the value of the vehicle, when all it was an aggressive detailing, so to speak.
Well, aggressive detailing. That's a
yes.
Great name for detail company.
Also a good name for a punk band.
Yes, it is. So you don't want to hide. Okay, this is that fine line, though, because if there's something done to your car and you go to sell it, you always want to have receipts, obviously.
Absolutely.
And so if something shows up on your Carfax that says damage reported, and it doesn't have any other details, but it'll have the date, and it'll match the date on your receipt from the body shop. So if you go to trade it in, you can show the body shop, you can show the dealer, look, and they can show that future customer that's going to buy it. Here's what it was. It was sap. It was road tar. It was, a minor scratch.
Right.
It's not something that is, there's no structural damage. It was no body parts or there's no paint work involved.
Right.
And it does think that it will show up on the Carfax because people will use that negotiation to pay less for your car.
Sure. And this frequently happens with hailstorm damaged cars that have been parked outside where there's been a hailstorm, windshield and rear glass has been shattered, the hood and the roof were damaged, and the body shop takes on the car as a repair, but all they're doing is replacing panels and doing light body work to the surface. Now, it's a lot of work to do that, so the cost is high, but the vehicle has not been in a major accident. So one of the things you also want to be mindful of is if your Carfax has information that has been erroneously logged to the Carfax, you can contest it. It's very difficult, but you have to contact Carfax and then discuss with them how to get your Carfax corrected so that that information can be remedied. and errors can occur in any way. Somebody could irregularly enter your VIN or enter a VIN number that is close to yours, or you could get the VIN number of some other car that's been in an accident that's very similar to yours, and all of a sudden it appears on your Carfax. Just like pulling a credit report, you can get a courtesy Carfax if you can show the company that you own the vehicle and you just want to make sure that there's no irregular statement of damage on the Carfax. It won't be a complete one, but you can call them up, they'll pull it up, and they'll say, just as a courtesy, there are no irregular reports on your Carfax. Then you can spend the whatever, $19, $20 or $30 to get one. I think it's $30 or $40 now.
$39.99 is the regular price, but there's always ways to find cheaper ways to get them. You can buy a multi-pack, you can get a 3-pack. Now, here's the other thing that's interesting is a lot of times you always want to take your car to someplace when you get it repaired that does report to Carfax.
Yeah.
Because, I had a car that I bought a few years back, the Acura MDX that I've mentioned before, bought it at the auction for $1,500. It was a one-owner car. It had over 200,000 miles, but it had 17 pages, printed pages of results of every single time. They took it every 3,000 miles to the Acura dealer.
Fantastic.
And that dealer put it, so I could see the timing chain was done. I had the entire history of that car because the owner took it to a dealership or a shop that reports to Carfax. I don't think it costs anything. I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't cost anything because Carfax wants the data that if you're a repair shop,
absolutely,
you can submit the info.
Yeah, there's no cost to it. Once the VIN is entered, it goes into a VIN database, and Carfax just pulls the information off of the VIN database. The system, the 17-digit VIN system started in 83 or 84.
1980 is the first cars. 81 is when it was required, but 80, because an A is an 80.
Okay.
The 10th digit is the year.
And so since then, when you get any kind of recorded service or repair of any kind, including a smog test, emission thing, that sort of thing, they log that information on the Carfax report because it goes into a VIN database for VINs because they're all federally regulated. So I don't know, you might know the answer to this, Dan, but I don't think Carfax is federally regulated because all they're doing is drawing from the federally regulated database.
Carfax has their own database as well.
Okay.
Because things like this one I just pulled up, CarTech Automotive in San Antonio, Texas, worked on this car. And so did MD Automotive. They're just little independents. Tim, who's a dealer who's chatting with us right now, dealerships do it through their ADP, CDK, or Reynolds, which is their back-end system. So when they do a repair, it automatically gets sent out.
Right. Thank you, Tim. That's helpful because I know dealerships, I believe as a dealership, you're required to enter the VIN whenever the car comes in for service. I think that's
right. And most shops will do that if they have a computerized service. I mean, if it's some guy named, Frank, and he's just going to work on your car,
never trust
a computer. Yeah, obviously that's not going to show up. But most of them have a system. Even, there's a small little repair place here on the island that I go to.
Yeah.
And they're all computerized. They put my VIN and they put my miles in, and then I get an email. Hey, you're about due for service. They use it for marketing as well.
Yeah.
And some of these little shops, they're putting the stuff in. Now this is a Range Rover that I pulled up in Texas, and it had accident reported damage to the front. Wait, that's weird. Texas, then all of a sudden it's in Florida. Florida Motor Vehicle Department, San Antonio, Texas. Well, that's unusual. Not sure what happened there. And so then total loss vehicle. And now as of 9/12, there's been a title issued that went to an insurance company. And what's great with Carfax, some of them do this, and I'm not sure if it's just the dealer version, but I can actually look at retail value and wholesale value, and it takes into consideration it's worth more if you've got service history. It's worth more if it's a personal vehicle versus a fleet or rental vehicle. And it's worth less if there's accident or loss history.
Right.
So this, where's the year, make, model? Hold on a second. This 13 lane Land Rover Evoque Pure is $16,000 retail, and wholesale $8,300.
Yeah, it's quite a difference.
It is quite a difference. So history-based values have really changed a lot of things. Black Book is another one that's doing this.
Yeah.
Similar to Blue Book. They'll take the history and they'll adjust the value based on the history.
Well, and the used car market has grown enormously over the past 10 to 15 years because used cars are now so much more prevalent because they last longer. People take care of their cars more. There are more expensive cars to begin with than they were in the past. So people tend to take care of their cars a lot more so. And compared with the price of new cars, they represent substantial savings. So the pre-owned or previously used or whatever.
Previously enjoyed is what I like to say.
Yes, previously enjoyed vehicles. To have this type of information available to the general public is very helpful.
Yeah. And while the insurance, the whole thing going back to diminished value, a perfect example, my wife had a 2010 Subaru when we first moved here, because when you move to Bainbridge Island, it's required that you own a Subaru.
Or a Volvo.
Or Volvo or a Prius. And we had a Subaru and a Prius at the same time, which, boom.
Yeah.
So what would happen is someone in a parking lot just kind of scraped her car. Scraped to the point where you couldn't even see it. There's no dent, and I was able to buff out the little white mark that was put on it. But the woman who did it was afraid we were gonna like, put in an insurance claim. So she called the police and wanted a police report. So now it shows up that we had this little parking lot skirmish. It actually said parking lot skirmish, which I thought was weird, on the Carfax. So when we went to trade it in, the dealer's like, 30% off. I got to take 30% off. And he knew I was in the car business. He goes, you know how it is, how it goes. It's got a bad Carfax. I'm like, it says, damage is all it said. Damage reported. And I showed him, find the damage. And you couldn't, it wasn't there. I think I took some brake fluid. That's the old trick that if you get a little white scrape, you put a little brake fluid and it just comes right off and you buff it out.
WD-40 does that as well.
I like the smell of brake fluid better. Anyway, so put a little back here.
It's a little safer. Brake fluid can actually hurt your paint.
Well, you have to do it very lightly. You don't put it right on the paint. You put a little and you just kind of rub it out.
Brake fluid light.
Yes. Diet brake fluid.
Diet brake fluid.
No sugar.
Brake fluid 0.
Right. So, but the car, I don't know the exact numbers, but let's say it was 20 grand.
Yeah.
And the dealer's like, he wanted to give us like 14.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. And I ended up selling it to a friend for 17, which is a good deal for him. Yeah. Because he still got better than wholesale. And it was on the Carfax. And I knew when he goes to trade it in, he's going to have the same issue. So it is worth less, but it's such a small, minor detail. Mm-hmm. So the diminished value there, like I said, there are companies out there. If you just Google diminished valuation of my car, as an example, you'll have 3 ads right off the top. And there are companies that will charge a fee to inspect your car and present the report that you can then give to your insurance company. Right. And again, your insurance company is not going to volunteer this. And very few people know I was a licensed insurance agent for about 3 minutes in Los Angeles.
There you go.
With Farmers Insurance.
During those 3 minutes.
What's that?
During those 3 minutes, you must have learned an amazing amount.
There are probably 10 people that know I did insurance, and one's my wife, and one is my old boss, and 2 are people that I worked with, and 5 are my customers I actually sold something to. So very small period of time. And the car, I always say I didn't do claims. I wasn't a claims adjuster. And I didn't know anything about diminished. I had no idea. I had zero idea. And the first time I heard about it was somebody had gone to trade in their car. And when we told them all this, they went off and did their research, and they came back and said, hey, I got a check from my insurance company for that value that you told me, because we gave them an appraisal at the dealership. And that's how I first ever heard about it, was a customer who did his homework and found out that this was an issue. Another dealer friend of ours, Ray, who's a regular viewer of the show, just commented, a good friend's Porsche Panamera was greatly diminished.
Yep.
He asked for it 2 weeks ago. He asked for it and he got a check for $6,800 extra.
Yep.
After the repair work.
And see, thanks again, Ray, for bringing that up. With particularly higher value vehicles or luxury vehicles that are, you know, $30, $40, $50, $60,000, you can get a substantial amount of recovery when you file for a diminished value claim.
Yeah. One of the companies out there is DV Assess, but it looks like it says DV Asses. That's a totally different site.
You don't want to Google that.
No. Diminished value assessment is one of the companies. And some of them do an instant online one, which I'm not sure how they can exactly do that. Some have a calculator that just kind of gives a range.
Yeah.
There's a term, it's called the 17C method, which apparently was from some State Farm lawsuit from years ago. And Bankrate, if you go to bankrate.com, they have a really good explanation of it. So if you're ever in an accident, for any reason you do an insurance claim, always look into diminished value.
Now, you can also, if you've been in an accident, you can also just simply text us or send us a message, and we'd be more than happy to offer some assistance to help you get prepared to do a little battle with your insurance company. Because even though most insurance companies want to help you, their job is to save their money. That's why they have so much of it. So they're going to try and get away with taking care of the repair of your vehicle and not pay anything more. So you have to constantly advocate for your personal property. So we really encourage you, if you're involved in any accident or if a family member is involved in an accident, do your homework, get prepared, because there's a fair amount of money that's available that you are entitled to if you're involved in an automobile accident.
Right. And Tim, who is a car dealer for a long, long time, he is reminding us, don't forget, if your car is totaled, they also have to give you your, depending on the state, but your tax and license back.
Excellent point, Tim.
Not necessarily back, but they're giving it to you because if you have to get another car and they say, okay, right now we think, you know, you can get a car similar to yours for 20 grand. Right. Well, it's 20 grand plus tax and license. And some states will just give you the 20 grand and you're on your way. Right. And then you go to buy a car and you're like, well, crap, what about this other 10%? So you make sure you always ask for that. It's always negotiable. That's very important.
And another good point, thanks for reminding, is if you're in an accident with a car that has had substantial repair over the previous 6 months, whether you had new tires put on, that's $500, or you had a brake job done, that might have been $800. You can get partial recovery for those costs that you incurred.
You can raise the value. Yeah,
that's right.
And it depends on your insurance. There's some insurance companies. Chubb is a good example. Funny name for an insurance company, but Chubb is a very expensive insurance. And a lot of times they'll give you a number and you go, nah, I want to total this out. Because if it's so close to being totaled, and a lot of times it's a higher end car, if you have a BMW M5 as an example, and it's worth $70,000 and you get $40,000 worth of damage. Well, that's probably not going to get totaled, but do you want a $70,000 car that had $40,000 worth of damage?
Yeah.
So there are ways. When I worked for Copart, we had cars that would come in that were partial repairs. And as they were repairing the car, the owner just kept going back to the insurance company going, no, look, it needs this now. And they kept pushing it until it was totaled. So then the insurance company ends up having to pay the repair shop for the work they've done.
Yeah.
And they send it to auction. And we had an M5, is why that popped in my head. We had this M5 that came in that everything was done except for literally the headrests, because the headrests were these automated, I don't think they had airbags, but there's some automated headrest option in the BMW M5, and they were like $1,200 each. And once it hit that point, it knocked it over the threshold to become totaled. So the insurance company totaled it out. I had a customer who wanted the car, and so we went out to look at it. We opened the trunk, and guess what was in there?
Headrest.
The two headrests. They had already bought them, and they put them in there.
My first guess was Jimmy Hoffa, but headrest.
No, he was in the glove compartment. But here's a car who it was already fixed. Everything was done other than the headrests, and then the insurance company decided to call it a total.
Yeah.
Which was insane. So somebody got a great deal on a totaled M5.
Well, and speaking of cars that have branded titles, you can also get a smoking deal on a branded title luxury vehicle that has been brought back to the dealer for the same problem 3 times. And the dealership has to honor the Lemon Law. And the Lemon Law states that if your vehicle comes back for the same thing 3 times and the dealership is unable to cure it, the vehicle has to be taken back. Then
correct. These are new cars. Doesn't count on a used car.
Right.
It's a new car, and it's from the dealership. So it is a Lemon Law. And you're probably thinking of a friend of ours from the Cars and Coffee group, Don, who also another M5, ironically.
Yeah.
He bought an M5 that had the Lemon Law, and they bought it. He bought it online, knowing it had the Lemon Law, thinking, oh, you got a great deal.
Yeah.
It is a salvage title, technically, depending on the state. Some state, almost every state, it's a branded title, but it's not always a salvage title.
Right.
And when it's a Lemon Law buyback, it's a good deal, because this one, when we did the research and found out why it was a Lemon Law, it was a paint issue. It had nothing. No, his wasn't. So his was a rattle issue. There was some paint issues that I've seen.
It was the wheel. And it ended up that they just simply replaced the wheel and the issue went away. So now this is not to be confused with, the Lemon Law is not to be confused with the John Lemon Law, which we can only imagine about.
Right. And I think it was just his 80th birthday the other day.
Yes, it was his 80th birthday yesterday.
Right. And Tim is pointing out a good point. The manufacturer is who determines that it's a Lemon Law, not the dealer.
Yes, that is
because
true.
the manufacturer actually buys the vehicle back.
Yeah.
And then it gets sold in the wholesale market, usually as, to Manheim or Odessa or Copart or IA in the salvage area.
At some point, we should probably have Tim on the show, but at some point, I'd be curious as what the percentage of manufactured vehicles annually are pulled back via Lemon Law, because that would be a really interesting statistic, just to see whether or not there's some opportunity to specifically corral Lemon Law cars and offer them through special auctions.
Yeah. And I mean, for something to come back 3 times for the same thing, it's almost like saying Beetlejuice 3 times. It's like Lemon Law, Lemon Law, Lemon Law. It seems weird that they couldn't fix it. You know what I mean?
It as weird as making 1980s movie references.
I just watched it the other day because on Monday nights I do a movie show on Facebook.
Oh, do you?
Monday Night Movie Club, and last week it was Beetlejuice and my God, I forgot the other movie. Oh, Young Frankenstein.
Both good movies.
Yes, and I told the story of our Lotus named Igor that we were trying to help that lady sell here on the island.
Yes, Igor.
So going back to the very beginning, if you're in an accident, you have an insurance claim, the bottom line is ask about diminished value. Absolutely.
Diminished value, very important to ask about. Also, go through your records, comb your records, what you did to that car 6 months ago, maintenance improvements, refundable, and very, very important, when they offer you a check to go buy another car replacing the one that is salvaged, make sure you get the tax and license on top of that as well.
Yes. Tim brings up another good point too, that it does have to be the same problem. So, you can't just say, I hear something and then you take it in 3 times, they don't hear it, but you say, I heard it. So that's 3 times. It's not like that. It's something much bigger of a deal.
And the 3 things they cannot fix to your satisfaction usually involves something that disables the vehicle. So you're unable to get it started. They say they get it fixed, you take it back. 3 days later, you're unable to get it started. It has to be some sort of aggravation that cannot be solved.
Right. And Tim says it's very few, and I would think it's very few, to be honest, because if it's an engine knock, they can probably figure out a way to, they can figure out why it's causing it. If it's a brake issue, they can figure out why it's causing it. But again, there was the one that I thought of at CarMax at the auction. They had a GTR, a Nissan GTR, which was $86,000, and they bought it at the auction, not knowing somehow that there was a lemon law on it. Which I'm like, how could CarMax make that mistake? But it had been returned because there were paint issues that at the factory, and they took it back, had the body work done, and they could not fix it. And I thought that's really weird that a paint issue could be it, but it could be anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what Tim was trying to say here, but Nancy Ford Hostetter Fiesta. I think he might have had some autocorrect happen. Ford Fiesta. I think all Ford Fiestas should be lemon lawed.
Should be lemon on.
Or the Festiva.
The Festiva. Do you remember the Festiva?
Yes. So going all the way back, always ask extra questions. Don't accept anything when it comes to an insurance claim. Health insurance too. They do the same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, don't take the first offer. Their job, most insurance companies' job is deny, 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 especially if it's a smaller company. If it's a Farmers or State Farm or Allstate or Progressive.
And keep in mind, they're trying to help you. That is what they want to do. Good customer service. But their number one priority is to save the money. They do not want to give the money. They want to save it, which is why they have so much of it, because they're very good at calculating how to best save the money, but still maintain the highest number of happy customers. And absolutely true with health insurance as well, Dan. If you've had a knee replacement and something goes wrong and they want to compensate you, get the extra money for the compensation on your knee replacement as well.
Yeah, what's your diminished value? You're worth less now. I mean, I think an NFL player gets diminished value, or sports guys.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Tim's saying it's a slow day down there in Florida. I'm guessing he's at the dealership and it's raining. So
here
if it rains, that's when we sell more cars in the rain, I think.
Probably. We sell more Subarus in the rain.
Definitely. So that's our insurance half hour that we can cover. We could probably get an insurance agent on sometime. My old boss, we're Facebook friends. I haven't, seen him in 20 plus years, but the guy that was a district manager for Farmers when I was there in Los Angeles, I'm sure he would love to get on and just talk insurance and give some tips and advice.
Sure.
People think they're just shopping price. I can get $22 a month.
Right.
There are so many differences in insurance coverage. And something as simple as I got a chip in my windshield. You call them up. If they don't refer you to SafeLight at this point, every insurance company is using SafeLight. And I don't want to plug SafeLight by any means. I've used them many times. They come to your house. One guy, they have this arm that comes down and pulls the thing. It's unbelievable how quickly they can change.
Yeah. It happens so quickly now that I had my windshield replaced a couple months ago. They did it so quickly. I actually watched the guy doing it, and he spent more time cleaning the glass and vacuuming the interior as a courtesy than he did replacing the windshield.
Yeah, I had before I traded in or sold off the Acura. It had a couple of little divots on it.
Sure.
And they were about to crack. And most insurance companies will say, go get it repaired, no cost. Yep. There's no deductible, there's nothing, because they don't want it to turn into a broken windshield. And I think there were 5. And I took it to the SafeLight locally here, and they were like, okay, you only have 2. I'm like, there's 5. She goes, 3 of those were already repaired.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'm like, of course, the previous owner with the 17-page Carfax. How could I not think that those were already done? So they put the little stuff in the other 2, and it keeps it from cracking further, which was great.
Sure. So
that was the excitement of that.
That was very, very exciting.
Now, if you have any questions about any car questions whatsoever, you can put them in the comments. You want to know something about buying, selling, trading, leasing? Our friend Jake asked me an interesting question the other day. If there are any brand new 19 Corvettes sitting on dealer lots anywhere, because when you go to the Chevy site, you can't look at 19 Corvettes anymore. It's really weird. 2021s are all that are on there. And normally if it's an older year, you can still do a search.
Yeah.
So Tim, I don't think you're selling Chevrolet, but if Tim was selling Chevrolet, he could go in, log into General Motors national database, and he could do a locate and find Corvettes. Because 19s, they were doing 0% for a while. And
Sure.
with the new body style, the 19s have very little value.
Well, and they dropped so quickly in value because the 20 and 21s a completely different design and engineering package. But a 19 Corvette with low miles, that's a fantastic car to buy, because they're going to be substantially cheaper than they were new, and substantially cheaper than a 20 or 21. So if you like the look of the 1919 or the
1919, holy moly,
2019
Corvette, let me tell you,
that is an old Corvette. That's one Lindbergh was flying. Then you can definitely save some money with that car.
Yeah, but you know, you could almost find a brand new 19. I mean, Jake's thought process is pretty strong here, because you could probably find a brand new 19 out there that the dealer could give you quite a deal on.
That would surprise me, Dan, if a dealer's still holding on to a 2019 Corvette.
Well, I'm saying they were not holding on to it; they're stuck with it. You know what I mean? It's not that, because the 20s came out and nobody wanted the 19, and you know, I'm sure Chevy, you know, pulled back on shipping 19s very early.
It's like a boomeranging kid coming back from college. I keep trying to get him to go get a job, do something. You 2019 Corvette.
Yeah, it's like, please. Now you know, our Cars and Coffee group, we had a guy yesterday that came by, and he had the 2020, a red one with the black interior.
Oh,
it's amazing. It is just an amazing car. And I really would love to see more of them. But because what's funny is a lot of people ordered the 2020 because they wanted to have the first year of the mid-engine car.
Right.
And they had a strike first, and then this little pandemic we're going through. And so they were closed, and now they're making the 2021s. So a lot of the people that were on the list to get a 2020 will never get a 2020.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
There's two.
I wish General Motors would do what Tesla does. A 2020 is a 2020 until December 31st. And then 2021 is when the 2021s happen, but they don't do that.
Well, there's two people in our car club that have ordered them, and they're still waiting to get them.
Yeah. And we just had one show up on Tread in Virginia, a silver one with a red interior.
Great looking car.
The guy just wants to get, I mean, he just wants an offer, because we don't sell cars in Virginia right now. And I've sent it out to a bunch of friends, and everybody's like, well, how much? I'm like, you tell me. Like, he just wants an offer. The one we did sell, we had one in Florida. We had a white one with like 400 miles, sold for $95,000 or $96,000.
Wow.
Sticker was 84.
Wow.
So somebody bought a used one for 10 grand over, because you just can't get them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just can't get them. And they are a gorgeous piece of machinery. They started $59,999.
Try and find one for that.
They didn't. I don't think they made any of them. It's like when Tesla says they started, you know, the super cheap model. They don't make it.
Yeah, it comes with rubber floor mats.
Yes, and crank doors,
roll down windows.
Crank windows. Speaking of new cars, I want next week. Remind me to talk about this next week. I should write it down. BMW's new design, I think, is so weird.
Oh.
The grill is so big, and since you're in the car design business, you teach car design.
Yep.
I want to talk next week about car design a little bit in detail, and why they get so jarring all of a sudden.
Yeah. Like,
why does it get to the point where it's almost unrecognizable?
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. There's a lot to it, and you know, car design in general is it's a challenging thing to do, because you have to do it inside a corporate model. And that corporate model often includes sales, marketing, lots of opinion, as well as tons of regulations and restrictions for how things have to be made. So yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. That could take a whole show, in fact.
And I know we've touched on it before, but I think now that the 2021s are coming out, I'm seeing a trend with 2021 that it's almost like all the manufacturers are saying, we want to look so futuristic this year. Like even when we were talking about like the 2020 Tahoe versus the 2021,
sure,
the difference, it's a big difference. And the 2021 BMWs are like, it's no longer two kidneys. It now looks like
it's
two shoulder blades.
They're two kidney diseases.
Yes. So that's the future, but let's talk about the past.
Let's go.
Let's do old school. So we're going to have Raffi going old school. We're going to see what he's going to talk about today.
All right. So this week's old school is not really that old, but in order to understand the context of it, we are going to have to go old school. So Dan, I'd like you to pull up the 2013 Ferrari California. Now, you can pull up a 2010 or 11. It does not have to be that specific, but what I want to talk about is the Ferrari California in general. Fantastic automobile. If you were going to go look for a Ferrari convertible, pretty much of any kind, what you would end up having to do is, let's say, okay, I'll go look at the 60s. I love a good vintage Ferrari. You try to find a vintage Ferrari from the 60s, forget it. You're just not going to find one for anything less than $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. Some of them are even millions of dollars. Now, you go to the 70s and you say, well, I'll find a Ferrari convertible from the 70s. Those might be cheaper. Not going to happen. Even if you look for a convertible, what you're going to find is you're going to find target top cars like a 246 Dino or a Ferrari 308. Again, good cars, but not convertibles. With the Ferrari California, you not only get the convertible, you get the retractable hardtop. So you get a beautifully designed convertible and a coupe design as well, because that roof transforms from the top all the way back, folds in, and parks underneath the smooth rear deck. There's the shot of it with a convertible top down. What's exciting about the Ferrari California is you say, well, let's look at Ferraris from the 80s. Maybe in the 80s, there's some convertibles that were there. Sure. Then you'd have to go and buy a Ferrari Mondial, which for all intents and purposes is not a pretty car. If you get into the 90s, you might decide, okay, I'm going to go look for a Ferrari convertible from the 90s. Even Ferrari convertibles from the 90s, like a 355 Ferrari, just not going to be a pretty car. By the time you get to the 2000s, this is when Ferraris start to look beautiful as convertibles. And you can look at a Ferrari 360, which is the 360 Spider. Very, very pretty car as a convertible, but God help you when you put the top up, because it is so unusual and so ungainly and just looks like it's just, nobody could ever even imagine a convertible top the way it's constructed on a Ferrari 360, which is why you hardly ever see the top up on a Ferrari 360. So it's not until you get to the Ferrari California, which gets its name, by the way, from Ferris Bueller's Ferrari California 250, probably one of the most famous and iconic Ferraris ever made. So the big ticket here is not that you get a beautiful, true convertible with the retractable hardtop. You get a Ferrari, which is a fantastic car with 450 horsepower, phenomenal acceleration, great road manners, and used. You can get that Ferrari California for about $80,000. There's the Ferrari 360 from the 2000. If you get a shot of that from the rear, it just looks like something went wrong. Like they had to come up with some way to make that top look right. Now there's the top down, hidden completely, and the car actually looks pretty darn good. As a convertible, the Mondial is a handsome automobile, and they're not very expensive, but if you want a car that you can drive with the top up and down, so an all-weather Ferrari that has style, grace, 450 horsepower, that's your car. And you can get a good one, low miles, ready to go and enjoy for about $80,000. That's the Ferrari California. It's a little more recent old school, But in order to figure out how good that car is, you go back and you look at the true old school of Ferrari, and you become to see, you say, wow, if I want to have a Ferrari convertible, I got to pay in the millions. With this car, I've got all the benefits and I'm paying less than 100 grand.
Wow. Well, I mean, and if you find one that's been totaled and repaired, you might be able to get one for 50 grand.
Absolutely. And in a car like this, if it was damaged and body panels were replaced, but components and the overall structural integrity is still good, it's a great way to go, especially if you're looking for something that's got some fun and prestige. I mean, goodness gracious, to get a Ferrari of this quality, and they're available with a wide range of options. You can get carbon fiber interior, you can get special sound systems, you can get all kinds of things. Beautiful, beautiful automobile, lots of performance, and the added benefit of being both a convertible and a solid roof design.
And I mean, 80 grand is a lot of money for a lot of people.
It is.
But if you're looking at buying a supercar, which Ferrari is a supercar, right?
Well, some
Pretty
of
close,
the Ferrari are supercars. This particular car, the Ferrari California, is in supercar territory with its performance and capabilities. 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. That's supercar territory. It'll go 193 miles an hour, a little slower with the roof down. It's got F1 technology built into the drive system. It's got a 7-speed jet-drag transmission, which is the first of its kind in any Ferrari. And if you want the slightly newer version, and you're okay paying a little bit more, you can buy the Portofino, which is Ferrari's continued model that came after the California. But for my taste, I go for the Ferrari California. I think it's a fantastic value. And I think, it's funny to think, well, we're going old school with a car that maybe is 10 years old. But these days, if you want great value and you want to have just a little bit more variety in your driving experience, the convertible Ferrari California is a great way to go.
And a 13 is what you recommend.
I do recommend the 13 because it's one of the last years that they made it, and you'll get a lot of the improvements that have been put into them. And oftentimes it's easier to find 2013 because these cars were bought at the very end of the run, and 2014, I think there were some made in 2014. But once by 2014, the announcement of the Portofino came out, people who had bought the 2013, they decided to sell them. And so the values on those tend to be quite strong for somebody who's looking to buy. As I said, you'll find them online. Some might be $65,000, $70,000. But a good one's going to be about 80 grand. And as you said, Dan, 80 grand is a lot of money to pay for a car. But if you've got something else that you can sell for 40, 45 grand, you put that money down and then you finance the rest, and you're into a Ferrari for probably less than $1,000 a month.
Now, are Ferrari Californias as expensive to repair and to maintain as a traditional high-end? I mean, is this basically the 3 Series of the Ferraris?
This is basically the 3 Series of the Ferrari. When the Ferrari California first came out, Ferrari elitists kind of didn't like it because they thought it was too thick, too heavy, it didn't look like a Ferrari. This retractable roof thing felt like it was a little too average. It was just something that and they didn't like the price point as well, because at the price point at that time, 120 to 160,000, I think was the price point. That made this Ferrari quite affordable for a lot of people. You could get a nicely optioned one for about $180,000, but you could get them optioned up to about $200,000, which is a lot of money to pay for any car. But lots of Ferrari people didn't like it because it was sort of that lesser cost Ferrari.
I just did a quick search on cars.com,
Mm-hmm.
and I pulled up the California,
Mm-hmm.
and I pulled up under 80,000,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not giving me, I'll just go price. It's not giving me, for some reason, it's not sorting.
Ah,
There are a few, it looks like there's a few up to 16 even.
yeah. Well,
But you're saying you want to go older because obviously you're not going to get the deal.
yeah. Did they make them through 16? I thought the last year was 14.
For the base, it looks like, yes, 14 the last year, but then they have the T model.
The T, yes.
Yes.
The T is a different model. It's going to be a little bit more expensive and it's a little more exclusive. They built the T to extend the model range because they weren't as ready to do the Portofino. So
Right.
we got to do something here. We add a T. Yes, of course, we'll do that. And so they added the T. Did that for I think 2 more years.
And here's a nice $73,000 one, 2010. Here's a 12 for 89.
Yep. And these are
here's a 10 for 74. And again, these are the asking prices, not what you're underpaying.
Right. You can always negotiate. Usually there's going to be anywhere between 5 and 10% room on some of these cars. And these are luxury vehicles, luxury sport car. The leather interior, the premium sound, fantastic cars. Now, Dan, you talked about maintenance. These tend to be lesser cost for maintenance. They have the V8 engine, and Ferrari's V8 engine is quite well known for having been very well resolved. The design is quite robust now, so you're not going to experience significant costs in general maintenance. And if you decide you're going to keep the car for 2 years, your biggest costs are going to be the general service maintenance. That might be oil changes and other little things here and there. You want to be sure that you keep it on a battery tender if you're not using it all the time, because you don't want the battery to go to zero. That can sometimes be costly. But your average costs are going to be anywhere between $2,500 and $3,000 per year for general maintenance, things like that need to be done to the car. If you're putting some miles on it. If you're not putting a lot of miles on it, then you could own the car for 2 years and have less than $3,000 in your total maintenance.
Yeah, and Tim points out you should 5,000 miles a year is a good guide for what you should, you don't want to go more than that, especially when you're going to buy one. If you're buying a 10-year-old and it's got 70,000 miles on it, that's been driven pretty hard.
Yeah, and
nobody uses these as a daily driver.
Right. Even though you absolutely could. These are cars that you can put a lot of miles on. And if that's something that you want to do and you just want to buy it and drive it, the wheels off of it, have at it, because they're great cars to do that.
You mean this particular one, not a Ferrari in general?
Not a Ferrari in general. Yeah.
Gotcha. So somehow we're almost near the end of the show. I don't know how it happened so fast.
Wow, look at that.
If we were driving, we'd already be in Squim. Some of the cars that we got to see over the last weekend, we went to that private collection. The Mercedes, the 3 Mercedes.
Yes.
They were white with red interiors.
Yes, all 3.
What year were they again? They were 53, 55s?
50, 55.
The Gullwing was a 55.
55, 57, I think. And the Gullwing was 55. I think the Roadster was 57, the 300 SL Roadster. It might have been later. It might have been a 58 or 59. And then the 190, I think, was either a 58 or a 59.
What I was impressed by also was, the old T-Birds, some of the more basic cars that were there, the Volkswagen Beetles.
Yeah, he had 3 Beetles. He had a rare T-Bird. He had a 57 supercharged T-Bird, which is a very rare car. I think only 200 were made, and it came from the factory with a McCulloch supercharger, and that's a rare car. The other rare engine T-Bird is the twin 4-barrel E-Bird. The engine designations C, D, E, and F was the supercharged. So if you have an F Bird, that's quite rare.
And you don't want to F Bird is flipping someone off, flipping the bird.
There you go.
Jake mentions that the Corvettes they had there, 55 3-speed V8, 59 a 65 Fuelie, which is fuel injected, and a 67 400 Air Roadster.
Now that 67 400 Air Roadster, that was my pick in that particular garage. I don't know. He had 4 or 5 garages, and we didn't even get to see the Ferraris because those were
They're
in
at the museum.
Yeah,
So hopefully we
but
can go down to the museum and see them.
yeah, the museum has some amazing cars as well. But he's got a museum just in and of itself. But that Corvette, that 67 Roadster, that was my pick from that room.
Yeah, and overall, it was an amazing collection to see, and just knowing that there are these collections all over the country, these little nooks and crannies, and people that
Yeah.
have multiple garages and they have these amazing cars. And these cars were all, they could have been, you could have jumped in any one of these and taken them for a drive. Every
And
single one was ready to go.
not only taking them for a drive, you could jump at any one of them and take it to any car show and probably come home with a ribbon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Tim asked a good question. We'll end on this for the old school segment. What's a good investment right now? Like, well, if you could put 50 grand into a car that would be worth a lot of money 20 years from now, what would you do?
So it's a really good question, Tim. And right now, I think the answer is if you're going to put 50 grand into something, I would look at cars from the 80s and early 90s that were produced in limited numbers. They're already starting to show a lot of increase in value. An Acura NSX, for example, these were used 2-3 years ago. You get a good one for 30, 35 grand. Now you're going to be paying 50 to 60 grand. So prices are going up on them. They're not going to make any more of them. Those cars are going to be sought after. A Toyota Supra from the early 90s, the twin turbo Supra, those are coming up in value as well. An Acura, let's see, any of the early sport Acuras or R model Acuras, some of the 90s JDM cars, Japanese domestic market cars, now that you can import them into the United States with the 25-year rule, those are great investment vehicles.
Like the GTRs, the Skylines.
Absolutely, for long-term investment. The older cars, you have to go back to some 20s and 30s era cars, which right now are about the lowest in dollar value they've ever been. Those are actually going to become interesting again to a whole new generation of young people who want to go a little steampunk with their collection of stuff, because these 30s and 20s era cars are radically different in their visual architecture, and that's going to be appealing to a new generation of people 20 years from now.
Yeah, they're 100 years old. I mean, now you've
Sure.
got cars that are in the hundreds. Now, speaking of NSX, he had one there in his collection. He had a 99, I think, or no, 91. I mean,
If it was a 91,
had 3,000 miles on it.
yeah, very, and the NSX, phenomenal automobile, great design, superlative engineering. I think they made about 10,000 of them, maybe more, but not a lot more. And every single one of them was very well kept, or small percentage of them that got just purchased and used up by the original owners and in beautiful condition, sold for $25,000. Young people bought them, turboed them, thrashed them, put body kits on them. So a great percentage of those got modified substantially. So finding a nice original low mile one, you want to pay the extra money for that.
And since you are, like I said, award winner on Bring a Trailer for your comments and and you've sold many, you've had 3 big sales in the past week, really.
Yeah.
Bring a Trailer is a great spot if you want to look for cars that are unique.
Yeah.
I love looking at it. And, the obvious cars don't impress me. It's the rare, like that Mini that was up that you had up.
Yeah.
Or actually all 3 that you had, the Jaguar, the 911, they were all very impressive, unique cars. I like looking at uniques. I love seeing things even like that 77 or 76 Chevy Nova or Pontiac Ventura, whatever that was, that silver 4-door that went for $7,000, which was a good price, but it's a 4-door. But it was like 30,000 mile car from the 70s.
Sure.
It looked brand new. It's like a time machine.
These are
And-
cars I can't resist. I can't resist them. Low mile, well cared for, one owner, two owner car. And if you just want something unique, you go out, you spend 10, 12 grand, you get something really interesting. Then you drive it for a little while, you take it to a show, you fuss over it a little bit, and I don't know, it feels good. It's like an old book, you buy it at the bookstore, you look at it and you go, wow, this is just kind of cool. Look at the way they did the pages, look at the illustrations, and you just get a little time with it and you kind of appreciate something that just, for all intents and purposes, was done in a completely different time. Kind of transports you back there. Driving it, you feel a little bit different. It's an experience in total, and you can always sell it later. So what if you lose a little money? You had some fun. It's like a vacation. I often tell people, you buy an old car, you keep it for a year, 2 years. It's like going on a vacation. It takes you back in time. You get to go places you never normally would go. You talk to people you wouldn't necessarily want to talk to, but they're interesting people. You get in gas station conversations. 2 years later, you sell it. Even if you lose money, you had an experience.
Right. And a lot of people are like, well, I can't believe you had a DeLorean and you got rid of it. It's like, 6 years with the DeLorean, it was fun, and it was great.
Yeah.
And had the guy not offered what he offered, I probably would still have it. But it was also, a lot of 45 minutes to get gas, because you couldn't. It got to the point where you're like, yes, I get it. Okay, Back to the Future. Okay, 1.21 gigawatts. I get it. Yeah. Would I get one again? Probably, but part of the fun of getting a classic car is also, building it up. Starting with something that needs some work. All right, we're gonna do gas prices and get out of here.
All right.
What state's normally always lowest?
Is it Mississippi?
It is Mississippi. Okay, because I was going to say, was it Mississippi or Missouri? I forget. But all right, let's do some gas prices.
How much is gas where you live?
So just to make things a little different, we'll go with premium this week.
Premium, lowest premium price.
Lowest premium price in the country.
I'm going
Mississippi
Oklahoma.
does have the lowest regular.
I'm going Oklahoma for lowest premium.
Right on.
Really?
You got it right. And the amount is 234.
234. There you go.
234 is the lowest premium in the country. They also have $2 diesel in Oklahoma.
$2 diesel. Wow.
And they're $1.89 for regular.
$1.89 is pretty low.
Yeah, they're number 5 in the country.
We're like
here in Washington, as we like to give the quick update in Washington, gas prices are slightly down as of today. Today, by the way, is 10:10, and the show started at 10.
Yeah, a lot of 10s today.
What's we're down to 278.4.
278.
278.4. A year ago, we were 331.
Wow, I still think that's a lot. I mean, look, 278. My goodness, that's almost $1 difference to Oklahoma.
Yeah, but if you remember, and I don't know if you remember this, you probably do. And this is, I'm not making a political statement, but in the presidential debates in 2012, I remember Newt Gingrich's whole plan was 250 gas.
250 gas.
Well, you elect Newt Gingrich, gas will be 250. Gas will be that was like his platform. And I mean, the national average is 218.
Yeah.
So that's insane.
Well,
but yeah, we are basically 60 cents more than the rest of the country, but we have no state income tax. We have a little higher gas tax.
That's true. We'll see prices come down for fuel. I think prices are going to come down through the year.
Fall winter prices technically, usually do, but we'll see what happens.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's the show. We went a little over, but that's okay. It happens. If you have questions during the week, you can send them to dan@danrosenberg.com, or you can like our Facebook page at Clutch Radio Show and put questions and comments there. And if you're watching on Twitter, you can put them you can tweet me.
Tweet Dan.
If you're watching on YouTube, you can comment there. We make it simple. There's no way you can say you couldn't get a hold of us unless we don't see them, which also last week we didn't see any of them during the car ride.
Well, that's true. And also, periodically we'll get emails and people will ask us questions. Sometimes they'll recognize us on the street. And that happens all the time. It's hard to go out now with the family.
It's unbelievable with our fan.
The swarm.
We can't go into Jake's pickup without him talking about the show.
Swarms of people. But sure, that's what we're here for. We're here to answer your questions. We're here to help you out if you're buying, if you're leasing, you got insurance questions, classic car stuff. We're here to help you with that.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll see you next week right here on Clutch Radio with Raffi and Dan. I'm Dan.
And I'm Raffi.